As I do most Thursdays, a couple of Thursdays ago, I was watching DBK. And Martin and Mickey were talking about which knives they would have for the rest of their lives, at the exclusion of all others. So I suppose if you were to even break the knife, another one would just go boom and materialize in your hand, extra life type mode. That's how I'm seeing it anyway. They chose largely fixed blade knives, but interestingly, it had to account for all purposes, including food prep. Imagine never being able to use a kitchen or food prep style knife again and having to like force your bushcraft knives into that role for the rest of your life. No thanks, so this video is going to include that as one of the categories. I've done some broader categories across all spectrums of knife usage, and we're going to go through all 5 of those categories, choosing one knife from each and discussing some runners-up so we can all see some other knives as well, so you can have lots of knives flashing before your face in this video. So it should be a fun one. Let's get into it. All right, well, we'll start with EDC knives, the smallest first. Which EDC knife out of all of my collection here, which I look through every morning to make a choice, would I choose to carry as the only one for the rest of my life? Well, let's pick out 3. Runner-up number 1 is the Alma Eagle, the Eagle HD here in ZDP 189. I love the Eagle. It's just a classic pattern. I like knives that look simple. I like simple lockback thumb stud knives. I'm not all for the front flippers and the the thises and the locks. As fun as that stuff is, if I'm choosing a knife that I just need to carry, I want it to be nice and simple. So simple runner-up number 1 is the Alma Eagle. I've got a little Falcon as well, but the Eagle's a bit bigger. This is probably the best example of it, best steel. I don't know, maybe I like the flat ground more. Anyway, it's not the best slicer in the world, so it's not the one that's going to come with me every day for the rest of my life. What about the TRM Atom? So TRM Atom could be the best all-around pocket knife, really. Overall, it's very, very nicely refined. It does basically everything you want it to do. It's a liner lock, it's a thumb stud, it's got 20 CV steel on a nice thin blade. It's made in America even, for a good price for an American-made knife. This thing is great. I would prefer a little bit more rugged for my everyday knife though, and for viewers of the channel, this will not be a surprise at all to know that I'm going to choose the Spyderco Stretch 2. If I just had to have one knife for the rest of my life, it'd be the Stretch 2 in K390. Yeah, it's going to rust because of the steel. Yeah, it's a bit boring. Yeah, it's basically just a big Indela with a forward finger choil and a slightly wider handle, but that's what makes it great. It is just little incremental improvements on the FRN Spyderco, making for, I think, their best knife. I like this more than the Paramilitary 2. I prefer the simplicity of the lockback. For a knife I'm going to carry for the rest of my life, this is the one for sure. But Pete, you say, you absolute badger, you utter pillock. I don't want a folding knife for the rest of my life to be the one thing that's cutting everything. Well, of course not. That's what the next category is for. Companion fixed blades. For when you need to go outside and do slightly dirtier jobs. What's your favorite knife, Mrs. Chicken? So I've got 3 again. I'm going to start by talking about the DBK knife. How apt. What do you think of that one, Chicken? Seal of approval. The DBK knife is a really robust little, I think of it as a mini survival knife, really. It's got a really tough convex grind on it, cuts really, really well because it is a full convex, thicker spine, LMAX steel, really comfortable in handle. I feel like this is the optimized version of the Falkeneven Bark River style companion belt knife. Not quite the slicer that I would prefer out of a companion knife though, but it is definitely top tier stuff. The next one, making for a slightly better slicer, is the TRC Polheim. So the Polheim is a really standard looking fixed blade, black and silver. It's what I like, slab style handles. Overall, about as good as you can get for a simple, slicing, tough fixed blade, but it's not quite got the soul that I would like of the knife that I'm going to carry for the rest of my life. I want it a bit more comfortable as well on the handle. Slab style is good for durability, but In terms of comfort, I want a nice radius, hand-filling handle that basically feels like it's made for my mitt, and that is my EDC Knives custom fixed blade here. S45 VN steel, tall, slicey grind, really nice, comfortable handle, maple burl wood, lovely blade. Definitely, if someone said you can only choose one of your fixed blades for the rest of your life, it would probably be this one here. It does about everything to about 80% awesomeness, and that's about as good as you can get. Next category is a survival knife. So a knife to go out and use on, wood, hard work jobs, proper abuse type situations. So again, I had some thoughts to make, and it kind of started with size. A really recommendable choice for a basic survival knife is absolutely the Tarava Puko. This is the longer one. These are just so simple and fairly cheap. Great steel, EDC V2. You can sharpen them on smooth rocks. They are, despite the handle not being your classic slab style handle, by all accounts, these people have a hard time destroying these. They're great. They've got really good thick spines. They're not the best cutters in the world, but at this level, it's not an essential that it needs to make radish rosettes or anything like that. So overall, really great choice, but it's just the starting point. It's not the one I'd choose the rest of my life. So then I was wondering, this is almost the same size as my EDC Knives knife. That's why it's sort of not entering. So I need something bigger. So then I thought, well, next runner up is the TRC Apocalypse. Then I was thinking, if this was like the one knife for the rest of your life, this might be the one. It does that true thing of being okay at everything, being really high quality. It's nice and thick. It's an LMAX, which might not be everyone's choice as well. I've never had a problem with the LMAX here. I've sharpened it and I've used this on all sorts of rough, rugged things. But again, it's not huge. It's not that much bigger than my other belt knife. It's not. It's what I'm after is my survival knife needs to be foolproof. That's what I'm getting at. So that's why I'm going with the K-Bar BK9, big combat buoy. It's, this is an everything knife. This is like a chopping knife. It's a brush clearing knife. It's almost machete-ish qualities, make it really versatile. Spans any logs that you want to do splitting style things on. Comfortable handle if you upgrade to the micatas especially. Overall, this I think is the safest survival knife choice if you had to have just one for the rest of your life. Absolutely this guy. This one was not hard. We'll head to the kitchen to talk about food prep knives. So for kitchen knives, I've got three that I absolutely love. I'll start with my Acrylic Omnivore. This is like a petty knife. It's so good, but it's just a little bit on the small side if I had to have one forever. So as amazing as this knife is, just such a thin, great little slicey, fantastic utility knife. Obviously, you're going to be cutting things like pumpkins from time to time, and you don't want to have to come in from two different sides. So the need for a bigger knife is pretty apparent for me if I'm choosing just one food knife. So that brings to mind the Falconeven K2 White Whale. This is like a Santoku style knife. It's a bit more front heavy, thick all the way down to the tip. Love this knife, had it with me for years now. VG10 steel, really great and sharp. I just prefer for this purpose a more traditional pointier tipped chef knife. So that is my Shun Knives Sora. This is just in VG10. I don't have any amazing kitchen knives. This is a very good kitchen knife that I'd probably recommend to anyone. It's in the VG10 steel. It's not a carbon core or anything like that, so you don't need to really worry too much about caring for it. Really thin, great geometry behind the edge. Love this Shun Sora. And if I had to just have one kitchen knife and use it for the rest of my life for everything, I'd be able to manage with this. Absolutely. Yeah, hey yeah. But what about self-defense? This is the last category of knife that I'm choosing to talk about. Bit of a more abstract one, given that I don't live in a war zone or somewhere where I've ever really needed to draw a knife on someone in a dynamic way. But it's a fun thing to talk about, and I guess if we're talking about the rest of our lives, it's probably an apt-ish category to finish on. So 3 types of knives that I consider for self-defense. First up is your more typical soldier style knife. This is from Half Breed Blades, and this is basically a souped up version of a K-bar. So this is a cross-guard style clip point 7-inch blade with a pommel at the bottom there for some less than lethal strikes. Comfortable in hand, definitely better than a K-bar if you're after a 7-inch fighting style knife, which I'm not really, but I thought it was still a nice thing to talk about, to bring up. And maybe if you truly have studied the way of the blade, this is all you would need. I prefer a little bit larger of an intimidation factor because I ain't very good with any of this stuff, so that's going to be doing most of the work for me. This guy isn't as big as I would go. Yeah, what about the K-bar Big Brother? The Big Brother is like a beefed up 9-inch K-bar. It's got a bunch of serrations on the back there for cutting, and it's got a pretty typical K-bar aesthetic with the crossguard, the flat pommel there, the clip point, very big menacing looking knife. I would always prefer these were in silver so they can really be seen, because when you're not actually any good with the knife, it's better for it to be seen, because you're not after the surprise factor, because you're after the intimidation factor, saying, hey, I've got a big knife, do you know if I can use it or not? You're probably making the right assumption, but just in case, do you really want to try it there, Sonny Jim? Yeah. So I'm going to go a little bit larger even for my one for life scary fighting man knife. And that is, of course, channeling the old Crocodile Dundee giant Bowie knife. This is the Cold Steel Frontier Bowie, and this is the closest thing I've got to a medieval weapon, I feel. This thing is like a little sword. It's got a huge crossguard there. It's not going anywhere. It's certainly not going forwards. A lot would have to go wrong for my hand to slide up onto this guy, and it's just huge and scary. This tip here, because it's so thick, is actually quite a strong tip, but it looks so sharp and pointy and scary. And it's got a huge blade on it, nice and thick, and it's got a giant thick spine as well. You know, this could definitely scale down to meet the same role as perhaps the BK9 as well. The giant fuller there, really making it a strong sort of stabber and levering knife as well. Yeah, this is probably the one that I would take, because truly, that you'd have to be on some serious drugs to give someone a go who's holding this, even if you're pretty certain they, like me, didn't know what they were doing with it. So this would be the things that go bump in the night, hope to jump out and say, hey, yeah, think about it, kind of knife. So that's the way I thought I'd finish the video. Kind of a fun little less than likely scenario, but still definitely a type of knife to factor into your 5 for the rest of your life video, perhaps. So those are my choices for my 5 knives forever. Maybe if it wasn't for a video, I'd probably drop the last category. I don't know, fight anyone with a knife. But interesting to talk about nonetheless. So hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next film. Goodbye. What are you doing, Alan? What are you and chicken eating? Hi, Hilda. That was a good puppy dog. Yes. Hey, buddy.